Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. The ground beneath your feet feels solid, like the world is a stage, and you the only actor, standing still in a moment frozen in time. You breathe slowly. Everything around you is still, but beneath you, deep in the heart of the earth, the ground is far from still. It's shifting, growing, breathing. The surface beneath you is not the solid bedrock it seems. It moves, it pulses, it whispers in a language too slow for your senses to catch. This earth of ours is alive, but not in the way you think. The surface is like the skin of an apple, thin and fragile compared to the vastness beneath it. Below, in the depths, the mantle churns with heat, flowing and pushing, moving and shifting. You cannot feel it. Your feet rest upon the solid crust, the most visible layer of the earth's skin. But the crust is not where the movement is. It's deeper, where the earth's heart beats and its bones shift beneath your feet. The plates of the earth are moving quietly, but not in a hurry. Every year, they move a few centimeters, inches, hardly enough to notice in the short span of a human life. Yet, these movements define the very shape of the world. Mountains rise over eons, oceans stretch and shrink, continents break apart and drift toward one another. The Earth's surface is divided into tectonic plates, gigantic pieces of rock that float on the semi-liquid mantle beneath them. These plates are constantly shifting, slowly, almost imperceptibly. But it is through this movement that the continents are shaped, the seas formed, the mountains lifted. Imagine them like enormous, ancient puzzle pieces, pieces that fit together, but only for a while. Each plate is like a raft, drifting over the surface of the earth, carried by the slow, invisible current of heat below. It's not a current you can see, but it is there, the mantle below, moving like thick syrup, conveying these massive plates over time. And just like rafts in an ocean, sometimes these plates collide, sometimes they move apart, and sometimes they slide past each other, grinding, creating friction. The friction is quiet. It's not a loud crash, but a constant hum, quiet release of energy. And this is what causes earthquakes. When the plates grind against each other, caves, their edges lock in place. Pressure builds and builds until it becomes too much. The plates move, and with them, the ground beneath you shudders, releasing all the energy that is accumulated. But even then, even in the midst of an earthquake, the movement is slow. The plates don't rush. They take their time, they wait. And when they finally break free, it's almost as if the earth is sighing, releasing the tension it's held for millions of years. Imagine the way the earth moves as a dance, a slow waltz over millions of years. The plates are like dancers, moving with grace and purpose, slow but steady, never rushing. And yet, with each movement, the shape of the world changes. Mountains rise, oceans form, continents drift. It's a dance you can't see, but it's always happening, okay? Always moving. When you stand on the earth, you stand on the edge of this dance. The ground beneath your feet is not a solid, unchanging surface, but a living, breathing thing. It moves in ways you can't always sense, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. The mountains you see today, the valleys, the rivers, they are not permanent. They were once created by the very movement you cannot feel, but that still shapes the world beneath you. Tomorrow, they may shift a little. 1,000 years from now, they may be gone, replaced by new features, new landscapes, and the dance goes on. You stand still, but the world beneath you is anything but. It is restless, alive, shifting slowly, remaking itself over time. It's humbling, isn't it? to realize that the earth doesn't stand still? Even as you rest, it is moving. The same can be said of life itself. Everything is in constant motion, changing, evolving. Sometimes you can't feel it, but it is always there, moving beneath the surface. Perhaps you wonder what it would feel like if you could feel this movement. If you could sense the plates beneath your feet, feel the slow shift of continents, the gentle pull of the earth's breath. What would that be like? What would it feel like to walk on land that is alive, shifting with the rhythm of time, like the beat of a heart? Would you walk with more awareness, more connection to the world beneath you? The Earth's movement is not something to fear. It is a part of the planet's natural rhythm, a rhythm that has been playing for billions of years. It is the heartbeat of the Earth, slow but steady, a pulse that never stops. And though it's often invisible to you, it shapes everything you see. The mountains, the oceans, the valleys, the life that grows on this planet. All of it is shaped by the slow, invisible movement of the Earth's crust. You breathe slowly, and as you do, you realize that you, too, are part of this rhythm. You are part of a living, moving world, and even when you sit still, even when you close your eyes and rest, you are always moving in one way or another, shifting, growing, changing. The earth teaches you this, that nothing stays the same. Even when it seems like the world is still, it is always moving. Tonight, as you lie here, feel the earth beneath you. Let it remind you that even in your stillness, you are part of something vast. You are part of a living, breathing planet, always shifting, always changing. And when you stand tomorrow, know that the ground beneath you has shifted a little since today. Perhaps not in a way you can feel, but it is moving nonetheless. And so you breathe in and you feel the rhythm of the earth, the rhythm of time. You may wonder what the next chapter holds, how the cracks of the earth will speak. But for now, listen to the steady, quiet hum beneath your feet. The world is never still. And neither are you. You walk across the land, and it feels whole. It's a single sheet of soil and stone beneath your careful, barefoot step. But hidden beneath grass, beneath streets and cities, there are fractures. Thin, silent lines in the earth's skin where tension lives and waits. They are not mistakes. They are not wounds. They are boundaries, fault lines, and they hold stories too deep for words. A fault line is where two pieces of the earth's crust decide to go separate ways, or come together, or slide past one another like strangers brushing shoulders on a quiet street. You cannot always see these lines, but they are everywhere, like veins under skin, reminders that even the ground needs space to move. Some of these fractures stretch across countries. Some split cities in two. Some lie beneath the ocean, carving paths no one has seen, and yet, through them, continents shift, mountains form, land changes. The San Andreas Fault in California, a name you may have heard. It's not just a line on a map. It's a meeting place, a conversation between two giant tectonic plates, the Pacific and the North American. They don't face each other kindly. They grind, they shove, they stall, and snap like ancient dances with opposing steps. Sometimes the earth quakes, but most of the time it just waits. These cracks don't just pull apart, some press together. Imagine the Himalayas, those towering snow-capped peaks. They rose because two plates collided. India pressed against Asia, and the land had nowhere else to go but up. That collision isn't over. Even tonight, even now, the Himalayas rise a few millimeters more. What feels eternal is still in the making. Elsewhere, the cracks tell a quieter tale. In East Africa, a great rift opens slowly, not with violence, but with patience. The land is stretching. One day, perhaps millions of years from now, a new ocean will flood in. A new coastline will be born. It's not a rupture, it's a rehearsal, a slow, breathy beginning to something vast. These cracks, fault lines, ribs, transform boundaries. They do not break the planet. They allow it to grow, to breathe, to rearrange itself without exploding. They are how the earth listens to pressure and how it speaks back. The silence before an earthquake is just a pause before a sigh. In every shift is a sentence in the language of stone. You may think of cracks as signs of failure, but here they are signs of movement, of growth, ancient flexibility in a world that appears so rigid. The crust of the earth is not fragile. It is responsive. It yields and it bends, and when it must, it breaks in just the right places. It is not chaos. It is choreography. Think of a seam in a garment. It's where two pieces are joined. Not always perfect, but necessary. A fault line is no different. It joins, even as it divides. It allows one side to pull and the other to resist, and both two continue slowly becoming what they are meant to be. Without these seams, continents would not drift. Mountains would not rise. The earth would not breathe. Even now, beneath your home, your city, there may be a fault. Perhaps it hasn't moved in centuries. Perhaps it never will. But it is there, a quiet suggestion that the land is not done speaking. And if it does shift one day, if it lets out a breath too big for silence, you'll feel it, briefly. Then the world will settle again, as if nothing happened. But something always does. In Iceland, the cracks open wide. There, you can walk between two continents. The mid-Atlantic ridge slices through the island. Europe to one side, North America to the other. Stand in the rift, and you are between two worlds. The earth does not hide its fracture here. It shows it proudly, moss-covered, mist-trapped, bathed in steam and ice. A visible fault, still stretching, still speaking. Sometimes these cracks leak fire. Sometimes they welcome water. Sometimes they remain dry and waiting. But always, they remind us that the surface of the world is not finished, not fixed, not final. It is still becoming, and maybe you are too. You might ask yourself tonight, where are your own fault lines? Where are the places you've been stretched, split, made to move? Did something new rise from those cracks? Something stronger. SDR stranger, something unexpected. The earth breaks to transform. So do you, and if one night the ground trembles beneath you, do not fear. It is not the end. It is the continuation of a rhythm too slow to feel until it reaches its breathless peak. The earth is not breaking. It is remembering how to shift, how to breathe. So when you next walk upon land, wonder what quiet fault lines rest beneath. What ancient movements cradle your step, and what might awaken when the stillness breaks. Just as the earth stretches itself, open to reshape what has always been, so too might we find form in the places we once feared to crack. Tonight, as the ground settles once more, something beneath you is reaching forward, seeing, shifting softly in the dark, not to split the earth, but to prepare it for what's next, and far beneath the silence of rock and root. Those slow-moving plates begin to carry you toward a distant shore, still unseen. What are they carrying you toward? You lie down and close your eyes. It feels like the earth is still a resting place, solid and unmoving. But below you, beneath your home, beneath the mountains and oceans, the surface is drifting very slowly, not with urgency, not with violence, just a gentle, invisible motion, too slow for your body to feel, yet old enough to carry countenance across the face of the world. You live on one of these floating pieces, a plate wide and thick, like a stone raft, riding the soft, molten breath of the planet's mantle. It is not like ice on water. It is more like bark on a great tree, firm on the outside, but rising and falling with the deep, hidden sap of time. Each plate is a part of something bigger, the jigsaw puzzle of Earth's crust, 12 major pieces, dozens of smaller ones, all moving, always, never in a hurry, but never stopping either. You might imagine the Earth's surface as a cracked eggshell, with the cracks, not flaws, but seams, lines where plates press, pull, or slide. Some plates cradle oceans, some carry mountains, some hold cities and forests and deserts, and all of them are moving. North America drifts westward, Africa slowly turns, India pushes upward, into Asia, raising the Himalayas higher each year. It's happening beneath your very feet, but it moves slower than your fingernails grow. And yet, over millions of years, this slow dance can reshape everything. There was a time, long, long ago, when all the continents were one, a single supercontinent, Pangaea, a name that means all Earth. Picture it. No Atlantic Ocean, no distance between the Americas and Europe. Africa pressed against Brazil. India nestled beside Antarctica, a land of unity, silence before the drift. Then, slowly, the cracks formed, not as disaster, but as destiny. The pieces began to pull apart, each carried by a plate set into motion by the deep breath of the mantle. And with time, millions of years, lifetimes stacked like pages, the puzzle rearranged. The Atlantic Ocean opened like an eyelid. India sailed north like a ship without water until it collided with Asia and gave rise to the roof of the world. South America turned, and the Andes rose like a spine. Australia drifted away, carving its own quiet path. Each motion, silent, shift, patient. The puzzle doesn't fall apart, it breathes. Even now, scientists can measure the motion using satellites. They track the drift of continents with precision measured in millimeters. You may not notice, but GPS systems do. The Earth's map subtly changes each year. A building's location shifts ever so slightly, and the mountain doesn't move in your lifetime, but it does move. Every continent is still journeying toward what? No one can say. You might wonder, what makes these plates move? The answer lies deep beneath, in the mantle's slow churn, convection, heat rising, material cycling. The mantle is not solid, not truly. It flows like thick syrup, and the plates above float on it like rafts on a hidden sea dot. When warm mantle material rises, it pushes the crust above it, where it sinks again. It pulls crust down in its wake. It's not unlike the way warm air rises and cool air sinks in the room you sleep in. Just deeper, older, quieter. Sometimes, plates diverge, pulling apart, creating new crust. Ridge is one such place. There, deep underwater, lava rises to form new seafloor, pushing the Americas away from Europe and Africa. Other times, plates converge, colliding gently but relentlessly. One might slide beneath the other, disappearing into the mantle, or both may rise together, raising mountain chains skyward. Sometimes they simply slide past each other, locked in tension, waiting to release. Each type of boundary tells a different story, but all belong to the same long narrative, the reshaping of a living world. Imagine your own body as a floating puzzle piece, changing, adapting, colliding, drifting through time and memory. There are moments you pull away, moments you press too close, moments you transform. What might your inner tectonics reveal if you could map their motion? You carry pressure, too. You slide past other lives. You rise unexpectedly after long stillness. You are not separate from the planet. You are patent like it, somewhere deep beneath the Pacific. The plates turn slowly in a great circle, a slow swirl of birth, an SUBDUCTION. Here, new crust forms and old crust dies, sliding back into the earth. It is the planet recycling itself, not wastefully, but wisely. Even rock knows how to begin again, and so do you. The continents will not stop moving. Someday, they may rejoin, A new supercontinent might rise. Pangea Ultima, some call it, a silent reassembly, a coming home. It will not happen in your lifetime or 1,000 lifetimes after, but the motion begins now. Beneath you, every step you take carries with it a whisper of that distant reunion. As you sleep, your plate moves, not fast, not even slow, but constantly, a few centimeters each year, enough to cross a city in a lifetime of lifetimes. Yet the oceans grow wider, mountains rise higher, volcanoes drift, and the face of the earth becomes something new. You are part of that change, not just as a witness, but as a participant, okay? As someone who floats, not above the earth, but with it. The stars may seem fixed, the sky may feel eternal, but here, beneath your body, the very floor of the world is sliding gently forward. You are not lost. You are in motion. So tonight, let yourself drift, not away from the world, but with it. Imagine the puzzle pieces quietly adjusting, reaching, fitting themselves into new patterns. Old coastlines fading, new lands rising, and in the dark, as the plates slide unseen, ask yourself what shores might your piece one day find. You are resting now. The world is quiet. Above you, the stars wheel gently through the night. Beneath you, something ancient stirs, not in chaos, but in rhythm. Deep below your feet, deeper than the deepest well. Beneath mountains and oceans and plates of rock lies the mantle, not solid, not liquid, not hot like fire, but warm like breath trapped in wool. A place of constant motion, soft, slow, and absolutely essential. This is the Earth's engine, and like all engines worth trusting, it works in silence to crust you. Live on your cities, your rivers, your forests is so very thin. Imagine the skin of an apple, that is Earth's crust, all we know, balanced delicately on the surface, barely 1% of the Earth's volume. Beneath it lies the mantle, thick, vast, stretching from just under your feet down, nearly 3,000 kilometers. It is not a void. It is not chaos. It is a realm of slow churn like honey that forgot how to cool. Rock here flows. It flows, not as water does, but as time does. Steady, reluctant, inevitable. The mantle is made of silicate minerals, compressed by weight, heated by the core, and never quite stilled. Behaves like a memory, slow to stir, slow to forget, but shaping everything above it. You cannot hear the mantle, yet every step you take is shaped by its breath. It moves in currents, convection, they call it. Heat rises, cool material sinks, and in this cycle, a long, patient breath. The crust above is pulled, pushed, carried like driftwood on an invisible tide. This is what moves the plates. This is what tears countenance apart, stitches them together again. This is the breath beneath the puzzle. You can imagine it, if you like. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of the earth holding you. Now go deeper, past the bedrock, past the plate, down into the mantle. A sea of rock, but not still. It folds and stretches, creeps and swells, like muscle beneath skin. If you could hover there, you would not see flames. You would see waves, rock flowing upward in long columns, rock sinking down in cooler slabs. It is not chaos. It is choreography, and this dance has gone on for billions of years, before you were born, before animals crawled onto land, before even the moon had finished cooling. The mantle turned, slowly, as it still turns now. No beginning, no end, just a deep geological breath that reshapes everything from within. The power here is not explosive. It is not the fire of a volcano or the quake of a fault. It is the power of patience, of unseen pressure, of time so slow it escapes your notice, but not your influence, because what rises from the mantle makes new crust. What sinks into it recycles the old. Even mountains owe their birth to the slow pulse of this buried ocean of stone. Sometimes we glimpse it. In volcanoes, mantle material pierces the crust in bright, dramatic eruptions. But these are not accidents. They are surface whispers of something deeper. Each lava flow is a message from the deep. Each island born from fire, like Hawaii, Iceland. The Galapagos is a punctuation mark in the Earth's long, slow sentence. And beneath all this lies the boundary between the mantle and the core, the deepest transition, where the mantle ends and the core begins. Here, pressures are unimaginable. Temperatures exceed 3,000 degrees Celsius, but even here, there is no rage, no madness, only order, only rhythm, just beneath the place where earthquakes begin. Beneath the deepest minds and the oldest bones, the earth carries on its slow, internal ballet. You are held by it, cradled in the motion you cannot see. Sometimes scientists send waves through the earth's seismic tremors. Sound echoes in rock to map the mantle's secrets, like sonar through stone. And in the echoes, they read its layers, its shadows, its great moving rivers of heat. We know now that plumes of hot mantle rise from deep within, creating volcanoes, cracking continents. We know that the cold slabs of old crust sink back into the mantle, pulling entire ocean basins close behind them. It is a cycle, an inhale and exhale, a kind of planetary metabolism, and it never stops. If the crust is where stories are told, the mantle is where those stories are born. It is the library of change, the furnace of form, and though it speaks in temperatures, pressures, and centuries, you can feel its rhythm right now. You breathe in slowly and out slowly. The mantle moves to it is Earth's breath, and you are part of it. Perhaps your life also contains a mantle, something slow moving, something invisible but powerful, a place where thoughts churn quietly, where memories rise and fall, where pressure builds and builds and eventually gives birth to something new, not with drama, not with flame, but with inevitability. You are not made only of surface. You have layers, depth, motion beneath stillness. You are the earth, remembering how to move. Tonight, as you drift further into stillness, imagine this ancient ocean of stone below. It moves for no one, and yet it moves. Let yourself be carried. Not hurried, not pushed, it's guided by a current so old it no longer asks where it's going. And in the quiet that follows, ask yourself, what else in your life moves unseen but changes everything? You lie still, but the earth always is moving. Now, imagine two giants beneath you, two titanic plates of the earth's crust, slowly approaching one another, not with a crash, but with a lean, not a war, but a yielding. One dips gently beneath, the other into the depths of the mantle, vanishing into heat and time. This is subduction, not destruction, but return. Subduction zones lie where oceanic crust meets continental mass. The ocean floor, heavier and colder, bends downward. It does not fight, it bows. The heavier slab sinks, the lighter floats. And in this ancient dance, mountains are raised, volcanoes are born, and trenches open like wounds that do not bleed. The earth does not scream. Sighs dot along the edge of the Pacific, Japan, the Andes, Cascadia, the Aleutians. The world folds inwards. Oceanic plates descend beneath land. They slide down at angles, sometimes gently, sometimes with resistance. And the descent is not short. It may stretch hundreds of kilometers deep. Where one plate surrenders, life emerges anew. Picture the boundary. Cold ocean floor, ancient and dark, dives slowly beneath a continent's edge. It carries sediment, water, and memory. As it sinks, pressure builds. Water is squeezed from minerals like breath from stone. This water rises and, in rising, lowers the melting point of the rock above it. Magma forms, hot, hungry. It pushes upward, and so volcanoes rise. This is how fire is born from surrender. The earth does not resist change. It participates. Even in giving up surface, it creates something new. The volcanoes of the Andes, Japan, of the Pacific Northwest, they are not accidents, okay? They are the flowers of a planet slow bowing. Subduction is also the maker of trenches, okay? The Mariana Trench. Deepest known place on Earth is no scar. It is a boundary where the Pacific Plate bends and sinks beneath the tiny Mariana Plate. It stretches down nearly 11 kilometers, so deep it could swallow Mount Everest whole and still have darkness to spare. But it is not violent. It is patient. It's a seafloor. Creaks, folds, and yields. And though it disappears from sight, it does not vanish from purpose. As the plate descends, it is slowly unmade. Rocks melt. Minerals change. New materials form. Metamorphic rocks are born here: slate, schist, clogite, rocks that carry stories of pressure and time. And sometimes, small pieces of that old plate are lifted back to the surface by rising. Magma, carried skyward in mountains, laid bare for scientists to find, even in descent. Nothing is lost. Subduction zones are also places of tension. The plates do not slide easily. They catch, hold, bend, and then they break free. Suddenly, an earthquake, some of the world's strongest quakes, begin here, where the earth has been holding its breath for centuries. A pause, then a release. A reminder that even patient systems must occasionally exhale. But not all is threat. Subduction is balance. Without it, new crust would keep piling up. The earth would swell and thicken. Instead, old crust returns to the mantle, melted down, reborn. This is Earth's recycling. Not of trash, but of terrain. Closed loop. Old becomes new. Deep becomes surface. Always changing, always steady. And you walk above this ballet of stone, your feet on steady ground that floats above a deep surrender. You may never feel it, but the earth beneath you knows how to bow, to yield, to become something new. And in that gesture, there is no weakness, only wisdom. There are lessons here in how the planet moves, in how it lets go. It does not resist the fall. It does not fear being changed. Sinks with purpose. And from that depth, something always rises. Fire, land, life, even from what seems like loss. So as you lie here, letting go of thought, of tension, of today, imagine that quiet surrender beneath you, a plate sliding into silence, not lost, just beginning again somewhere deeper. What within you is ready to soften, to yield, to descend, so something else might rise. The earth bows, it gives, and in giving, it creates. Perhaps the deepest strength is not in holding on, but in letting go with grace. And as that thought lingers, as the warmth of your blanket mimics the mantle's hug, you drift slowly toward sleep, wrapped in surrender, held by the quiet turning of the world. Let the day slide beneath you. Let the old thoughts sink. Let stillness rise like new land, and somewhere, far below, a new mountain begins to form. You're lying down, still, quiet, and calm, but far below your resting body, the earth is holding its breath. There is no noise yet, only silence, deep, ancient, intense. It's a silence that stretches across fault lines, curling into bedrock, settling into place like a secret kept too long. The ground is still, but the stillness is not peace. It is waiting. The story of an earthquake does not begin with a tremble. It begins with pressure. Two plates push against one another, rubbing, resisting, refusing to yield. For days, for years, for centuries, the edges deform. They bend, flex, and lock in place, like two massive hands gripping tight, unwilling to let go. And in that grip, tension grows. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it, but beneath your city, your forest, your ocean, the world is storing energy like a bowstring drawn back. The silence becomes heavier. A silence that is not empty, but full. Full of possibility. It's full of shift. Even the animals feel it sometimes. The way dogs bark without reason. Birds scatter. Ants pour from the soil. They sense the pause, the charged stillness. And then it happens. The lock plates slip. A crust snaps. What was held is suddenly freed. And the ground moves. Not gently, not slowly, but with a power as old as the earth itself. The shaking begins deep, miles beneath the surface. Fracture opens, and energy radiates outward in waves that ripple through rock like ripples through a pond. These seismic waves come in types. The P wave, or primary wave, moves fastest, a compressional push and pull like the sound of a bass drum rolling just beneath your feet. Then comes the S wave, the secondary wave, shifting side to side like a rug being tugged sharply underfoot. Last are the surface waves, slowest, but most dangerous. They travel along the earth's skin, rolling and twisting like a sea of land. Buildings sway, windows rattle. The ground itself becomes uncertain, not because the planet is angry, but because it is realigning. It is releasing. The stored tension becomes motion, In moments, seconds, or minutes, the earth settles again. To you, the earthquake is a sudden moment, a surprise, a jaunt. But to the planet, it is a deep breath, finally exhaled. It was never sudden. It was building all along, like feelings long buried, thoughts unspoken, pressures ignored, until one day, something shifts, and everything moves. And yet, after the shaking, a silence returns, not the same as before. This silence is relieved. A silence after rain, after tension breaks and resets. The crust has spoken, and now it rests. Scientists trace these motions with instruments that listen so precisely, They can feel movements smaller than a hair. Seismometers, the planet. They detect not just major quakes, but tiny ones too. A shiver in the Arctic, a whisper in the desert, a crack beneath the sea. The earth is always moving, always adjusting. It is only us who are surprised. In places like California, Chile, Turkey, Indonesia, people live with this rhythm. They build buildings to sway. They teach children to duck and cover. They map faults like scars and study them like poems etched in stone. Because when you live near faults, you live with memory, and memory teaches preparation. But even in places far from known faults, earthquakes can arrive. The ground below is full of stories, some written long before cities were built, before humans walked. And sometimes those stories rise again, unexpected, unwritten, but not untrue. The shaking itself is brief, but its message is long-lasting. It tells us that nothing is truly still, that even stone has stress, that even the earth must pause, adjust, and move. And you carry pressure too. Moments held tight, Thoughts buried deep. Friction that builds quietly inside. You know that feeling of silence just before truth emerges, of breath held in the chest, waiting to be released. When it comes, it may be sharp, It may be sudden, but after, there is stillness again, a deeper calm, A new alignment. The earth teaches through motion. Not with noise, but with pauses between. Not with chaos, but with clarity hidden in disruption. There are faults beneath your home, beneath your city, beneath your dreams, invisible to the eye, but always there, shifting slowly, speaking only when they must. And in knowing they are there, you are not afraid. You are aware, awake to what lives beneath your feet. Let your own pressures ease tonight. Let your muscles release, your breath loosen. If something must shift inside you, let it shift gently. Let the silent tension find its moment of rest. And remember, the earth never holds on forever. It lets go when the time is right. And in that letting go, it begins again, like your breath, slow and steady, like your heart, soft and rhythmic. The earth trembles and the world resets. What might you learn from this quiet restart? Just as the tremor ends and stillness returns, you sense the next movement forming. Not a quake, but a question, a curiosity. The ground may settle, but there's still more to read, more to trace, more to listen for. And so, we look to the lines drawn by Earth itself, the messages it leaves behind for those who are patient enough to read them. There is something deeply human about listening for things we cannot hear. It begins in the stillness after a quake, when everything settles, but questions remain. You lie there, eyes closed. The world no longer shaking, but somewhere an instrument is still humming, still scribbling its quiet lines. This is the art of reading tremors. The seismograph doesn't look like much at first. Wait, a spring, a pen dancing on a drum of paper, or now a digital whisper recorded in numbers and graphs. But this machine listens to the earth in a way we cannot. It feels the invisible. It senses what lies beneath. It writes with urgency when the world itself can no longer stay still. The story of the seismograph began over a century ago, but the idea is much older. Even in ancient China, they built vessels with dragons holding bronze balls in their mouths. When the earth shook, the balls would drop, revealing the direction of the tremor. It wasn't perfect, but it was poetry, gesture of listening before. The language of faults and magnitudes existed. Today's seismographs are more precise, but no less poetic. They still serve the same truth. The earth is speaking, and someone should listen. When an earthquake occurs, it is not just a physical event. It is a sentence written into stone, a message from within the crust encoded in the speed, direction, in shape of waves. Primary waves arrive first, like a knock at the door. Then secondary waves follow. Then surface waves rumble and roll. The seismograph captures them all, on the screen or on the paper roll. They appear as lines, jagged, rising, falling, taut to the untrained eye. They may seem chaotic, but to a seismologist, these lines are a language of pressure and release, of distance and depth, of time and rupture. The timing between wave arrivals tells you where the quake happened. The height of the lines tells you how strong it was. The shape reveals the kind of rock it passed through, the fault it danced upon, the angle at which the crust gave way. And from that data, a picture forms, not just of what happened, but why. It's like reading a diary the planet kept beneath its skin. You don't need to be a scientist to feel awe at this, to know that somewhere beneath your feet, the planet recorded a moment of truth. And that moment has a shape, a rhythm, a voice. Just as a heart monitor records the pulse of a body, a seismograph records the pulse of the planet. It is not just a machine. It is an ear, a translator. Tia. Witness sometimes the lines it draws are gentle background noise of a restless earth. Tiny shifts, too small to feel, but still real. Other times, they spike, wild, tall, sudden, marking a break, a fall, a release. These are the moments that change landscapes, that move coastlines, that rattle windows and memories. And in every case, the seismograph remembers, even if no one else does. All over the world, a network of these instruments hums quietly. They're tucked into hillsides, buried in deserts, anchored beneath the ocean floor. They speak to one another, sharing tremors from continent to continent, like a global nervous system with a perfect sense of touch. Together, they form one giant ear, attuned to every footstep of the earth. Some are watching for safety. Early warning systems now exist in places like Japan and Mexico. A few seconds notice to take shelter, to halt a train, to stop a surgery mid-motion. It's not much time. But in an earthquake, every second is a gift. The earth cannot be stopped, but it can be understood. And in understanding, we soften the surprise. We build resilience, not resistance. Reading the tremors also lets us look backward by drilling into sediments. By studying tree rings and coral growth, scientists have uncovered echoes of quakes from long ago, lines left in mud, sudden shifts in forest patterns, ancient tsunamis frozen in sand, each one a ghost of motion, each one a lesson the earth remembers. And now, so do we. There is also the question of what we cannot yet read. Sometimes tremors come without warning. Sometimes faults behave strangely. Sometimes the lines on the seismograph don't match what we expected. And that's okay, because science is not the end of wonder. It is the beginning. It teaches us to say, I don't know yet. Not about you. Carry tremors, too. Moments of unrest beneath a calm surface. They may not shake buildings, but they shift your inner landscape. A conversation that left you unsettled. A memory that echoes a tension you cannot quite name. You feel it, even in stillness. And maybe, like the earth, you're looking for a way to write it down. What if your breath was a seismograph? What if your sleep recorded the shape of your dreams? What would the lines say, traced slowly across the hours of the night? Would they spike in a moment of remembered fear? Would they smooth into calm as you finally let go? Every heart, every mind has its own set of tremors, and every one is worth reading. Tonight, the earth may move, or it may not, but either way, instruments will listen. Scientists will watch. The story will be told in lines, in curves, in calm reflection, and you too can learn to read. Not with your eyes, but with your presence, with your patience. The tremors beneath you are not just geological. They are spiritual, emotional, human. They are part of living on a living planet. So, as you drift deeper, know that the world below you is alive. It speaks, not in sentences, but in pulses. It remembers, not with words, but with waves. And as you rest, you are held by ground that listens even as it moves. What else glows along the edges of the restless earth? You lie there, still as the sky before a storm, and the world beneath you stirs, not in violence, but in purpose. It is not chaos you feel. It is rhythm, circle traced in fire, a ring, vast and incomplete, glowing along the rim of the Pacific. This is the Ring of Fire. It wraps around more than 25,000 miles of Earth's surface, a seam stitched by volcanoes and earthquakes, woven by tectonic motion. It begins in the southern tip of South America, the coast of Chile and Peru, curves up through Central America, whispers beneath California's crust, curls into Alaska, then arcs across the sea, touching Japan, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea. New Zealand a ring, not of jewelry, but of molten truth. Here, the earth speaks loudest. Over 75% of the world's active volcanoes rise along this edge. Almost 90% of all earthquakes spark from its deep tensions. It is not one place, but a boundary. It's a mirror of pressure and release, an eternal ballet between plates that refuse to rest. This ring does not bind, it breathes. You've heard of its fury in headlines and documentaries, ash darkening the sky, villages blanketed in silence, tsunamis born in seconds, cracks splitting, roads like paper. But there is more to this place than fear. This ring is not simply a site of endings. It is a beginning, where one plate dives beneath another. New rock is born, where magma reaches the surface. New land rises, islands form, soil thickens, life follows fire. Think of the Hawaiian Islands, pearls of volcanic grace, or the Aleutians, remote, windswept, fierce with origin. Even Mount Fuji, with its perfect form and spiritual quiet, owes its majesty to this trembling circle. Volcanoes are not ruins. They are portals, not just destroyers, but sculptors of the earth. Inside each volcano is a chamber, not of rage, but of pressure, Magma does not boil in anger. It waits patiently, accumulating gas and heat until it finds a way out. When it erupts, it is not punishment. It is expression, the earth venting, not to harm, but to heal. Just as tears may fall when silence becomes too full, and earthquakes, too, while sudden, are not surprises to the ground. They are the result of a story long in the making. Tectonic plates grind slowly, resisting, pressing, until the stress becomes too great. Then, a slip, a correction, a sigh through stone. It may last seconds, but its cause has taken years. The Ring of Fire is a classroom for those who wish to learn the Earth's language. Scientists place seismographs here like stethoscopes to a beating heart. Geologists walk its edges to understand where magma meets. Ocean engineers design buildings to dance with the earth, not collapse beneath it. Even poets and sleepers like you can listen to its lessons. Lessons of patience, of creation through pressure, of beauty shaped by tension. What might your life create under similar heat? What rises in you when pressure builds? Do you erupt? Do you fold? Do you allow something new to form from within the fire? The Ring of Fire is not a warning, It is a metaphor. It reminds you that even what shakes us can shape us. Even destruction can leave behind soil rich with potential. In Japan, people plant rice in the volcanic basins left by ancient eruptions. In Chile, vineyards stretch across the lands once scorched. In the Philippines, generations live near craters because the soil is kind, even if the ground is not. They do not ignore the danger. They learn to live with it, to respect it, to adapt. Perhaps in your own life, you to live beside something unpredictable, some ring within your own mind where pressure accumulates. You cannot silence it, but you can listen. And in listening, perhaps you grow as you breathe in this thought. Imagine lava not as death, but as possibility. It flows hot, yes, but it cools into rock, then crumbles into earth, then feeds root and stalk and bloom. It becomes tomorrow's harvest, next season's foundation. This is how the world renews itself, not in peace, but in persistence. The Ring of Fire continues beneath the waves, out of sight, but never still. Tectonic plates slip quietly. Volcanoes breathe through vents, unseen. And small islands form, visible to all but birds and satellites. The process is constant, and that constancy is a kind of comfort. It means change is not random. It is not cruel. It is part of being alive on this moving sphere tonight. As you drift, you are closer to that fire than you think. Not in geography, but in spirit. You are part of a planet that never stops reshaping itself. That turns inward pressure into outward growth. You live on a fault line, even if you don't feel it. And in your stillness, you are learning how to glow along the edges. The Ring of Fire does not close. It is not a trap, but an embrace. A luminous reminder that movement creates meaning, that cracks can be fertile, that heat can soften stone and create something new. So tonight, let your mind drift to the coasts, to Japan's golden rice terraces, to Chile's starlit mountains, to the glowing calderas of Indonesia, and know that beneath each place, the earth burns softly, not in anger, but in rhythm. You are not walking on ruins. You are walking on a canvas that keeps painting itself. What rises slowly from your own inner fire? You lie still now, but the earth beneath you remembers movement. Not the flash of fire, nor the sudden shake, but something deeper, slower, like breath held long, then finally, gently released. This is the breath of mountains. They do not scream into being. They do not burst forth from the crust. Instead, they rise over eons, whispered into form by the meeting of giants. Tectonic plates move toward one another. They push, they refuse to yield. And so, with nowhere to go but up, the ground begins to rise. a ripple in stone, a folding of the earth, like fabric creased by invisible fingers. Imagine two continents drifting, drawn by invisible forces, finally colliding, not with violence, but with inevitability. And as they meet, the edges crumple, they thicken, they rise. This is how the Himalayas were born. India, drifting northward, met the underbelly of Asia, and instead of sinking, it pushed, still pushes. Even now, in the mountains rise, not in leaps, but in millimeters, one breath at a time. Mountains are not just landscapes, they are time made visible. Each layer of rock, each vein of quartz, each exposed fossil, a page in Earth's memory. To climb a mountain is to walk backward through history. The rocks near your feet may have once been seabed. The air you breathe near the summit once swirled through coral reefs. Mountains do not rise from nothing. They are built from what once lay low. What in your own life might be rising from quiet depths? The Andes stretch like a spine along South America's edge, belt where the oceanic Nazca Plate slides beneath the South American plate. Again, the language of subduction, of surrender, of pressure, transformed. And from that pressure, the peaks, sharp, snow-dusted, standing like sentinels over the land. These are not scars. They are sculptures. You might think the earth needs to erupt to express itself, but sometimes it only needs to fold, to bow, to endure pressure long enough for grace to form. This is how the Alps rose, how the Rockies unfurled, how the Zagros mountains came to cradle Persia in their arms. The slow ballet of convergence writes mountains into being like breath, leaving a mouth on a cold morning, barely seen, felt in the bones. And yet, even the tallest peaks are not immune to time. They erode, bit by bit. Wind eats their edges, rain softens their faces, ice carves their slopes. They do not resist, they allow. Their strength is not in permanence, but in their ability to become something else. Sediment, soil, life. Your life, too, may gather. Pressure, cues of strain, expectations, responsibilities, pressing against the edges of your calm. But maybe you're not breaking. Maybe you're rising. Maybe you're becoming a mountain. Not all growth is visible. Not all ascent is celebrated, but it matters, especially in silence. Look to the mountains at dusk. They do not chase attention, do not announce their height. They simply are, formed by time, shaped by pressure, softened by weather, okay? And still, they stand. This is dignity. This is endurance. This is becoming. There is peace in the patience of mountains. They teach without words. They speak through stillness, okay? They remind you that change does not need to be loud to be real. That what rises slowly may rise stronger. That even when no one sees your growth, here you're still growing. And that sometimes your breath itself is enough. Even as you sleep, the Himalayas rise. The Andes push higher. The Alps shift. The earth never stops building, not in haste, but in rhythm. And in this rhythm, you find comfort, because it means you are part of a planet that honors slow creation, that values quiet, transformation, that trusts the long arc of change. The mountains are not separate from you. They are in you, in your bones, your blood's iron, your ancient breath that once passed through volcanic skies. You carry the dust of 1,000 peaks, and when you pause, when you rest, when you breathe, you are becoming something high, even if no one sees. Let yourself fold softly tonight. Let the day's pressure become shape, not burden, and know that inside you, as within the earth, something rises, beautiful, enduring, quiet. You are not finished. You are forming, just as the earth is. As the peaks fade into darkness, you lie beneath the stars, the crust holding your weight, the mantle breathing below, and in that long, slow breath, something waits to lift. What will rise in you when the pressure becomes peace? Slowness is not failure. It is not delay. It's not the absence of motion. It is a different kind of time. One that lives beneath our own, measured not in minutes or hours, but in epochs, in pulses that outlive memory. You live on a world that moves in this time. It's a world that teaches you patience in every inch it chooses to shift. This is the science of slowness. This is how Earth builds everything that lasts. Each tectonic plate moves roughly as fast as your fingernails grow. Not a metaphor, a measurement. 3 centimeters a year, sometimes less. You would never notice. Not in a day, not in a week, but wait 1,000 years and a valley forms. Wait 1,000,000 and an ocean arrives. That's the secret of tectonics. The magic is in the waiting. The Atlantic Ocean was not always there. It opened quietly, a scene between 2 lovers, Africa and the Americas, who drifted apart so slowly they never seemed to leave each other at all. But over 200 million years, the ocean widened, not with waves, but with patience. That's how seafloor spreading works. Molten rock rises at ridges, cooling into new crust, gently pushing the plates apart. It is not dramatic, it is not even loud, but it is constant, and constant things are what shape the world. You may wish for change to come quickly. You may wonder why things take so long, but the earth reminds you, the deepest change is rarely setting. The most stable forms come from years. A becoming, a mountain range takes tens of millions of years. An island arc might need even more, and yet they rise, because nothing meaningful happens all at once. What in your own life might be rising slowly right now, somewhere beneath your feet? Mantle convection cells roll like massive invisible gears. They turn with the heat of the planet's inner fire, and in their slow churn, they guide continents, push oceans, reshape everything. These motions are as ancient as the earth itself. They don't ask for speed, only time, only balance. The San Andreas Fault moves, bit by bit, millimeter by millimeter. The Pacific Plate slips past the North American Plate like 2 enormous ships passing in thick fog. They do not crash, okay? They press, gently, until the moment they must adjust. Even faults learn from slowness. They build tension, release it in brief reminders, and return to their silent drift. There is no race, only rhythm. Think of the East African Rift. It is tearing a continent apart, not with violence, but with a widening embrace. Someday, in the very distant future, a new ocean may form there. A new coast, new islands, new winds. But for now, the land only stretches, barely, almost invisibly. And yet, it is happening, because all becoming starts with small shifts. The continents, too, are wanderers. Not lost, just slow. India raced toward Asia at a relatively brisk pace, 15 centimeters a year, a tectonic sprint. And still, it took tens of millions of years to form the Himalayas. Even speed in plate tectonics is measured in patience, and while the crust moves, it carries stories. Fossils, embedded in rock once, lay on ocean floors. Now, they rest at the top of mountains. They did not leap there. They rose with the land, silently, faithfully, like thoughts that surface in stillness, like emotions that bloom slowly after years of silence. Even the deepest trenches, the Mariana, the Tonga, those cold, dark places where the ocean falls, away into shadow, were carved not with sudden hands, but with constant downward pressure. They are deep because the earth allowed itself to sink over and over without resistance. Sometimes, the greatest depth comes from letting go slowly. When you look at the world through this lens, you begin to forgive yourself for not moving fast. You are part of a planet that prizes slowness, a planet that reshapes itself in tiny gestures. Quiet, R-E-A-R-R-A-N-G-E, immense. And if the earth can trust that pace, so can you. Your own transformations, the emotional shifts, quiet changes in belief, the subtle healing of old wounds may follow the same laws. They do not rush, okay? Do not announce themselves, but they are real, and they are moving, like continents, like coasts, like time. There is a gift in this, a comfort, because if slowness is how the earth makes mountains and valleys and oceans, then slowness is not the enemy of progress. It is the method. And maybe, just maybe, you are progressing too, even in your stillness. Let the earth be your teacher tonight. Let it show you that to drift is not to be lost. To wait is not to fail. To change slowly is still to change, even in silence, even in sleep, especially in sleep. So rest now on the skin of this drifting world. Let the ancient pace of the crust remind you that everything moves in time and time, like the earth knows exactly what it's doing as the mantle breathes below. And the plates continue their quiet journey. You float with them, not rushed, not stalled, but simply moving. And maybe, somewhere deep inside, you're beginning to trust that slow is not a weakness, but a strength written in stone. The ground will still be turning tomorrow, the continents still drifting, the trenches still deepening, the mountains still rising, and you, too, still becoming. What silent story of motion might the ancient earth still hold? Long before you were born, long before your ancestors named the mountains and mapped the rivers, long before ink touched parchment or breath-shaped language into memory, okay? The earth shook. The planet you stand upon has been restless since the beginning. And in that restlessness are stories without words, histories without authors, quakes without headlines. But still, the earth remembers. And if you listen slowly enough, you might remember with that. You lie still tonight as the crust beneath you settles into its shifting rhythm. It has done this before for billions of nights, beneath sleeping creatures, beneath forests and deserts, beneath cities that rose and fell without a single sound surviving. The oldest earthquakes left no broken glass, no frightened shouts, no sirens, only tilted stones, crooked ruins, walls leaning where they once stood proud. The earth speaks through ruins. Archaeologists call them paleoseismic traces, the subtle scars left in ancient soil, hidden until sand and time peel away in the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, in the deep shadows of Machu Picchu, in the buried temples of Delphi and Hattusa. Stones lie slightly ajar, as if moved by hands too large to be human. No records, no chronicles, just a shifted foundation where once a family may have eaten, slept, and prayed. What memory rests in that tilt? In ancient Japan, along the Nankai Trough, they built shrines at the edge of the sea, and on the stone gates, carved in weathered characters, are warnings: do not build lower than this point. Generations later, those who forgot built homes below, and the waves return to remind them. Sometimes it's the earth that remembers for us. In Peru, you find Nazca lions, vast geometric shapes, etched into the ground, unmoving for centuries. But near them, Palicatannels lie fractured riverbeds, broken by shifts beneath the surface. Long after the people disappeared, their lines remain. The ground has changed beneath them. The earth is the quiet editor of even the grandest stories in the Eastern Mediterranean. Once stood a thriving Bronze Age city, Ugarit. Its scribes kept records in clay tablets, pressed with cuneiform, trade agreements, hymns, inventories. Then one day, the city was gone, not conquered, not burned, but collapsed. Later excavation revealed walls pancaked together, as if pushed by invisible hands. The clay tablets scattered, the kill room crushed. No written record of the earthquake, but the earth had already written it in the rubble. Even the Bible speaks of trembling ground. Ancient Jerusalem, built on fault lines, felt the shiver of the crust many times. Stone blocks in Herod's temple shifted, cisterns cracked, stairs buckled. Later generations called it divine anger. But perhaps it was simply the earth stretching. Even faith rests on moving ground. And yet, some memories run deeper than stones. They live in oral traditions. In the Pacific Northwest, the native stories tell of a night when the ground rolled like water and the ocean came inland as if pulled by a spirit. For centuries, these were myths until scientists matched the story to a massive earthquake on January 26, 1700, an entire ghost quake confirmed by Japan's tidal records, but known first by a people who listened to the earth in stories, not seismographs. Some memories are not written. They are whispered through generations. The earth does not forget. Even when we do, in the city of Aleppo, layers of architecture lie shattered beneath newer construction. Quakes from the 12th century still echo in twisted columns, buried wells, broken archways under modern feet. We walk on the shoulders of forgotten tremors, and sometimes the earth itself tells no one. It cracks deep beneath the ocean floor in submarine quakes too distant to touch us. But coral reefs notice. They tilt, they split, they regrow sideways. Corals become accidental seismographs, silent sentinels of deep time. Even the sea remembers. In Iceland, the Lyngvalar Rift stretches where two plates slowly pull apart. There, they held meetings for centuries. The Alþingi, one of the world's oldest parliaments, as people debated laws. The ground beneath them whispered of movements older than law, politics on a breathing crust. Even order is built on shifting stories. Tonight, as you lie quietly, consider this. Your body, too, remembers old tremors, not from the earth, but from life. Moments when the ground felt unsteady, when something inside you cracked or shifted. Cuve, a change, surprise too large to name. You may not speak of them. You may not even recall them clearly. Ate, live inside the structure of your breath, the angle of your shoulders, the way you sleep. Your body remembers like bedrock. This is why the earth feels familiar. It's not just because you live on it, but because you are like it. Both of you shaped by forces larger than yourselves. Both of you carrying history in quiet cracks. Both of you shifting quietly in sleep. And so, the study of ancient earthquakes is not just science. It is listening to forgotten voices written in fault lines, twisted timber in riverbeds that have forgotten their paths. It is listening to the bones of cities that once thrived, then crumbled. It is learning that silence is not absence, but memory held too deep to name. Sometimes we rush to rebuild. We call it resilience. And perhaps it is, but the earth rebuilds slowly, with pressure, with heat, with time. So must we there. Our places, even now, where ancient quakes sleep beneath modern lives. Tehran, Naples, Seattle, Istanbul, their ground remembers. It holds its breath, waiting to whisper again, but not in fear, in rhythm, in a language as old as stone. Tonight, as the crust settles once again into its slow and constant hum, you drift with it, not fearing the next shift, but honoring the ones that came before. You are not just a person. You are part of the planet's memory, its nervous system, its quiet archive. And just like the earth, you do not have to speak to remember. And tomorrow, as you walk across tiled floors, or cobbled streets, or soft soil, consider what stories the ground holds beneath you. Old stories, silent stories, stories of motion and stillness and survival. Because the next chapter is still being written beneath your feet, and somewhere deeper down, the bedrock dreams quietly of something older still. What if the earth's dreams are never truly silent? You close your eyes, the night wraps around you like soft velvet, but beneath your bed, the planet moves, not in haste, not with violence, but in a slow, ancient rhythm, a whisper of motion that began long before your first breath. Sleep is not stillness, at least not for the earth, thousands of miles beneath you. At the very center of the planet, an iron heart spins. It is solid, a dense, fiery core, surrounded by a sea of molten metal. Liquid iron swirls in patterns shaped by heat and gravity, rising and falling in convection currents, cleat a soup stirred for billions of years. This motion creates something invisible, a magnetic field, and that field surrounds you. Even now, silent, unseen, but strong enough to guide birds, protect astronauts, steer compasses across oceans. The Earth has a shield, and never sleeps. Above the core lies the mantle, a slow-flowing sea of rock. You may think of rock as still, but deep in the earth, nothing is truly solid. Even stone flows, if given enough time. Mountains move, not fast, continents, but steady. Continents drift across the surface at the speed your fingernails grow. They push, they pull, they collide, not in days, but in ages, and that motion gives rise to everything. You know, even as you rest your head, mountains are born from stone pressed against stone. Ocean floors split open, releasing heat and minerals into the deep. Islands rise, not with explosions, but with patient fire. The planet is always building tectonic plates. The vast slabs of crust that carry continents glide over the mantle like rafts over slow water. Some carry cities, some carry forests, some carry only waves, but all of them move as if the earth is slowly stretching, reaching towards something unspoken. And beneath those plates, the mantle murmurs. Its heat warms the base of the crust, fueling volcanoes, guiding tremors, breathing new land into the sea. The ground beneath your house may seem firm, but in the span of geologic time, is a traveler drifting quietly while you sleep. Volcanoes, too, do not rest. Beneath the surface, magma gathers in quiet chambers, waiting for a moment, perhaps decades from now, to speak. Not all eruptions are violent. Some are slow oozes of black stone, layering the earth like spilled ink. Others never breach the surface, their heat rising invisibly, changing the chemistry of groundwater, nurturing life in the deep. Even silence has fire behind it. Meanwhile, on the ocean floor, hydrothermal vents hiss. These deep-sea chimneys spit heat and minerals into the cold blackness, feeding creatures with no need for sunlight. Bacteria thrive on sulfur. Tube worms wave in dark currents. Entire ecosystems grow where no light has ever fallen. This is Earth's secret breath. Life where none should be. Heat in the deepest dark. And it goes on even while you dream. As you lie there, the Earth's magnetic field continues to wrap around you. A gift from the churning core, this invisible shield deflects solar wind, guides migratory animals, and sculpts the auroras. High above, the northern and southern lights dance waves of green, red, and purple curling across the sky in response. Two storms from the sun, and yet the source of that beauty starts not in the sky, but in the iron heart beneath your feet. The auroras are Earth's silent reply to a solar question, and in some places, its deep planetary heartbeat leaves its trace. On the surface, hot springs rise in valleys, steam curling in morning air. Geysers erupt with ancient breath. Mud pots bubble, not from life, but from geochemistry and heat. Yellowstone whispers secrets from deep below. Iceland cracks with geothermal dreams. Wherever Earth reveals its warmth, you are reminded the planet is not cold. It only sleeps in layers. As your body falls deeper into sleep, it mirrors these rhythms. Your heart slows, your breath steadies, your muscles surrender. Like the crust floating on the mantle, you drift, and the deeper you go, the warmer it becomes. Not in temperature, but in knowing that beneath every still surface is motion. The comfort of the ground, comes not from stillness, but from its loyalty to its path. Even shifting ground can feel like home. In ancient times, people spoke of the earth as a body, a mother, a great beast, a turtle, a serpent, a giant, because they sensed, perhaps rightly, that the ground had a life of its own. Today, you use new language, plate tectonics, convection, electromagnetism, but the feeling remains the same. You are lying on something that lives, something that does not think, but remembers, something that does not speak, but sings, something that does not watch, but holds sleep. Then, with the weight of that knowing, you are resting on rock, but also on memory. You are wrapped in magnetic fields, older than language. You are breathing. Air filtered through stone, cycled through oceans, exhaled by force rooted in the crust. Every part of you is connected to the Earth's quiet systems, even your dreams. Perhaps tonight, you'll dream of continents drifting, or of lava flowing gently in the dark, or of auroras swaying high above while the core spins slowly below, or of nothing at all. Just the sensation of being held by a planet that never sleeps. Somewhere in the world, the ground is shifting, not with danger, but with purpose. Somewhere, a mountain rises a millimeter. Somewhere, a volcano hums in its sleep. Somewhere, a fault line waits, not to crack, but to breathe. And you, tucked quietly into your bed, are part of that story. You do not need to move to be moving. You do not need to act to be part of action. You do not need to wake to know the world is alive beneath you. The world does not hold its breath. It breathes slowly, deeply, constantly. If you quiet your mind, you might begin to hear it. Not in noise, but in rhythm. Not in speech, but in sway. Tectonic plates slide beneath your life. The ocean tides reach and retreat. The magnetic field pulses. The wind rises, falls, and returns. The earth does not speak in words. It speaks in motion. And all around you, that motion continues. The breath of the earth is not measured in seconds, but in centuries. It expands, not in lungs, but in oceans and forests. It exhales, not air, but change. Each tide is a breath, each quake a sigh, each mountain range a long inhale held over millennia. Tonight, you rest atop this breathing world, not as an outsider, but as something woven into it, flesh stitched into stone. Think of the tides. Each night, the moon pulls at the seas, lifts the waters, tugs the very skin of the planet. Now the earth responds, not with resistance, but with flow. Beaches vanish and return. Harbors rise, then settle. Salt water creeps inland, then sighs back to sea. This is not chaos. It is rhythm. It's the moon's soft whisper, the ocean's patient reply, and beneath the tides, on the seafloor, the tectonic plates respond to nudged, flexed, held just slightly off balance. Nothing is still. Even silence has movement beneath it. On land, you see seasons with seasons, or another kind of breath. A longer, slower rhythm, written in the tilt of the earth, the spin of the globe, the journey around the sun. Winter folds the earth inward. Spring exhales, blossoms. Summer stretches wide. Autumn gathers back in. The crust itself responds. Snow compressing stone, meltwater feeding rivers, expansion and contraction etching tiny fractures into ancient rock. You may not feel it, but the planet does. Even in your sleep, you are part of these cycles. Animals feel the breath of the earth in their bones. Salmon return to ancestral streams as if drawn by memory. Whales migrate with the pulse of the seas. Birds trace magnetic lines in paths older than cities. They listen in ways humans forgot, through instinct, through silence, but you can still remember. Not through sound, but through noticing the warmth of stone beneath sunlight. It's a pull of gravity in your souls. the rhythm of wind through trees. These are Earth's quiet breaths, and you, temporary guest upon its surface, are being rocked gently by each one. In deep caves, stalactites grow in response to dripping water. Slow response, inch by inch. Over centuries, the earth is shaping itself in utter darkness with no need for applause. This is patience. This is the breath of stone. Above you, the atmosphere rises, a blanket of gas moved by solar heat, spun by the rotation of the earth, sculpted by pressure and latitude. Winds blow, not randomly, but with purpose. Equatorial air rising, polar air sinking, currents spinning across oceans and continents. Even the jet stream, silent and far above, is part of the planet's respiration. It carries clouds, guides storms, and sways the wings of planes. The air you breathe now may have crossed deserts, kissed glaciers, brushed the fur of Arctic wolves. This is not just oxygen. It's story, it's travel, it's connection. And you, breathing it in, are listening without trying. When you walk barefoot, you feel the earth more clearly. The heat of pavement, the coolness of grass, the firmness of stone. That contact is not trivial. It is ancient. For thousands of years, human feet met soil without barriers. Each step adjusting posture, each movement tuned to terrain. And through those feet, people could feel earthquakes before they happened, storms before they arrived. Your body knows more than you remember, still listens, if you let it, and when you sleep. You return to the oldest rhythm of all, the slow pulse of life itself. Heartbeat, inhale, exhale, stillness, even in the deepest stages of sleep. Your cells hum, your organs align with internal tides, hormones flowing like underground streams, brain waves rising and falling like tectonic shifts. Your sleep echoes the earth's breath, not just metaphorically, but literally. Circadian rhythms align with the turning planet. Melatonin rises with the dimming sky. Cortisol hums with the morning sun. You are not apart from this system. You were built for it. So tonight, as your body softens into rest, as your thoughts slow, as your breath deepens, know this: the earth is breathing. To dot you lie in the cradle of an ancient inhale, the crust beneath you, the sky above, the magnetic shell surrounding it all. They are moving gently, without panic, without pause. You are part of a system that does not need to be fixed, only noticed, only honored, only remembered. The earth does not need you to understand it, but it invites you to listen. Listen to the hush between waves, to the stillness after thunder, to the silence inside stone. This is where you hear the earth's breath, not in volume, but in rhythm, not in meaning, but in motion. And as you sink deeper into sleep, your own breath falls into step. You become rhythm, you become motion, you become quiet earth, resting beneath quiet stars. And somewhere in the next room of your mind, the next fold of this journey, a new question forms. If the earth breathes beneath you, what does it dream when no one is listening?